While I'm so captivated by the beauty of my environment, I can't help but experience some of these highs and lows of what it means to be an expat.
Most men don't want a woman saying things that are strong and or truthful and or authoritative.
I'm just gonna say it. This strong Black woman attitude has got to stop.
It's so cute because when they drink water, they have to like open their legs and like bend down because they're so tall instead of like crouching down.
My milkshake brings all the boys to the yard.
For those of you who don't know, I'm here now. I'm in Kenya and I'm farming. Guys, I care so much about the land. I've been welcomed here. It's been beautiful.
Welcome back to the channel. Sister Kelly's here, the milkshake sister, all the way from the US, now resides in Nairobi. And you also have a house and farm. Black sister from the States, married and lives in Ghana. So they have a story to tell about Africa. The big question is, can Black sisters survive on the continent of Africa? That is a question we're raising today, man. This is Nairobi. Driving can be hectic here, but we learn to navigate. So can Black sisters survive on the continent of Africa? It almost feels like we are talking about, people who are alien, but they're human beings. And I think for a very long time also, most of our Black sisters are judged, maybe judged too harshly. But my sister Adila of the Mohammeds refers to the chicken head, that perhaps there's a strong attitude.
Well, nobody talking to you.
So I'm talking to you.
From Black sisters. And that may be a challenge on the continent. There's a reality around that. There definitely is a reality around that. But I would want to think that really the circumstances of life in the Western world have defined the Black sister, have made you who you are today, because you are living in a brutal society where you constantly have to prove yourself to make it in life, even just to do something that is natural, like raising a family. Those are the things that you have to constantly confront. Look at Danielle Brown here.
I have a chance to live, so I will risk whatever it takes to say his name. Marcus Brown! Say my son's name, Marcus Brown!
She is one amongst many. The symbol of the struggle of the Black sister. Even Black brothers out there, that lives are cut down so often, so easily, and that your place is a constant struggle just to defend it. So that kind of woman, by the time she's coming to Africa, she's coming from a point of trauma, and that will obviously reveal itself. But you're also coming from a society where you have learned not only to be assertive, but you have also been exposed to a culture where systems work, are built for the betterment of others.
You can find anything that you desire or want or think about in New York.
And so the frustration when you come to a continent like Africa, where tradition is deeply rooted, the cultures, the norms, patriarchy runs the society here. That is prevalent everywhere. So coming from a society where you are assertive, where systems work for you, where the law, though disenfranchises the Black person, still by and large listens to the female person. So whether they're Black or white or Hispanic, the law does exist, and oftentimes will come to your aid. In Africa, patriarchy seems to control the systems here. That Africa, for the vast majority of time, is controlled by men. Is controlled by men. Since independence, many African states were always independent, were always controlled by men. I look at Kenya's cabinet at independence. All of them, men in black suits. For real, men in black suits. That was a reality, and it has continued to date. Maybe with the exceptions of places like Rwanda, where you find there's a bit more female ministers in cabinet. So you will find that difference. But by and large, patriarchy and tradition still control Africa. And that will oftentimes be in confrontation with a westernized person who believes that there's supposed to be equity amongst men and women. So how do you navigate the continent? I did a story here before about some of the harsh realities that you've got to face. And that still obtains. The truth is that really, if it's a relationship, for you to survive here, you have got to interact with a brother who has got a greater worldview. Not stuck within the confines of the village where he was raised. Only anchored in tradition, but not in a world where there is so much beyond just the traditions that you find in Africa. Granted, for real, that most of these traditions anyway still provide the anchor that defines Africa. So there's a richness about it. And for those that work, we choose them. We choose to retain that. Those we must retain. But the others that have become outdated. Look at something like FGM in certain communities where sisters, unfortunately, the one thing that defines womanhood is defiled in the name of tradition. Female genital mutilation, FGM.
Ryle doesn't know that she's broken the law, but she is aware of the effects circumcision will have on her health. She chose to go ahead with it.
There are communities that practice that in Africa to date. There are even African communities are now domiciled in places like England, and yet they still secretly practice that tradition, which essentially violates the black system. It does. Yes, men do circumcision in many African Bantu communities. So Africa must learn to keep what it can keep that is relevant to the life that we live in today, that appreciates human life and dignity, that is respectful to the human body. So if you are having to confront a brother who's from that kind of a system, that kind of a society, that kind of tradition, then you definitely are starting off from a very difficult or disadvantaged position, unless he's willing enough to accommodate the fact that you are a modern woman by every instance. If you look at the same story that I looked at, I was looking at some of the challenges that we face on the continent. There are sisters, lives that we lost here on the continent, in Gambia, for example, that came out of situations of either crime, in reality that was crime, challenges between individuals relating, and some of our brothers here rubbished it as, you know, a situation that just involves black women who are difficult to deal with. But really, should one lose their life? Yeah? Should one lose their life in the name of defending tradition? And it's painful that they lost loved ones simply because somebody wanted to flex. Hard truths. But when you listen to DIY talk about what she's observed in Ghana, then you know that tradition, deeply rooted tradition, remains a big challenge, is in constant confrontation with those who are coming from a Western culture, where women have learned to be assertive. Your culture allows that. Patriarchy by far still controls much of Africa. If you look at even the presidencies across Africa, there's very few female presidents. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf became the first female president in Africa, I believe. We've got recently another female president in the East African region, Madame Samia Suluhu. And another gift came down in South Africa, Southern African side, Namibia, who, by the way, has come out so strong and even stopped Americans from waltzing into Namibia. You previously did not need a visa to get into Namibia as an American. But considering what is happening now with American politics, the policies, the foreign policy of the US, other African countries are now thinking, hey, we got to stop Americans from just walking in. Because if you cannot express that principle of reciprocity, then you are dealing with a scenario where states are now saying it is quid pro quo. You give us something back, we give you back. And that may just be the trend. Let's travel across Africa. You've got Ashley in Africa. You've got another American sister, a New Yorker, who has made a life in Namibia. You know, how about that? Married, got family. And her thing is, she suggests just keep an open mind for Africa to work for you. Keep an open mind. Tradition will be a big barrier. The role of the woman, especially in rural Africa, you still find women quite subjugated. And the traditions that are really curtailing development of women also revolve around sexuality. There are practices such as FGM, which are not only outdated, were really a violation of the female body. Somebody denying you the pleasure that was created, God-given. He wasn't a fool to do that. That was God-given. So FGM has been by far a practice that violates the body, violates the woman. And if you are likely to bump into a brother who comes from that community, then that is something that you have to be really, really careful about. I'm not saying it could happen to you. You are born and raised, socialized differently. But somebody coming from that kind of a culture may have a certain mentality towards women that might not work in a modern day relationship.
Niliwa hapa kwetu ndiye hata leo. Nilisaliwa mimi nikapata hao watu wakiwa wanaendelea kutahiriwa. Sasa kitu gani kitasababisha kupinga hii kutahiri?
Factors to consider. So that if you are going to relate with an African brother, it has got to be a brother whose worldview is expansive, not somebody whose vision is limited to the village where he was raised. Unless, of course, you want to partake of rural Africa and its tradition to that extent, that deeply rooted tradition. Those are things to watch. And religion is also a major factor. Religion allows the men to have 3 to 4 wives. Then you know you're likely to find yourself in a polygamous situation. Ask yourself that. So obviously, that is what they do. And they see no need to change it. It works for them. And if you are likely to be in that kind of a scenario, these are things you may just have to ignore altogether. You don't have to make too much noise about it because that's how they've run their life. If the women choose to be in those relationships, even those who are educated, then it's definitely a deliberate choice. But like even my sister, the one who lives in Namibia,
I am not even in Africa right now.
She's
I am in the middle of New York City.
a New Yorker through and through, man. but she met somebody who obviously has a certain sense of the world. If you go to other cities or other towns, you may find a mix of urban dwellers and rural dwellers. Especially in the coastal areas, it's a bit slow. You look at what was happening in Gambia. Some of those places have tourism that invites older women to come and grab the young boys, young men. And the reality is their relationship there is a transaction, both ways. The women are after the young blood. The young blood are after money. Again, don't crucify me for this, man. Those are harsh truths. Even in Kenya, you go to Mombasa, it's a coastal place. You will witness that. How can you then adapt to a continent where you come from a strong-willed woman culture, and you come to a continent where the vast majority still are under patriarchy? So if this new man you've got, that you found here, is somebody who can embrace the African sister and all your energy, your chicken head, so to speak, as Adela says, your strong will to survive, which has defined who you are, the person that you are today, then if that brother exists, then by all means, partake. Other than that, I think you can make a solo life on the continent. Nairobi is beautiful. Joburg, there's enough places you can go to. Make a life for yourself. And hopefully thrive on the continent. DIY is doing it in Ghana. Ashley is doing it in South Africa. Kellyan is doing it in Namibia. We've got other sisters in Nairobi, and I'm sure the cases are many. So it is a possibility, but the challenges will exist, and I cannot sell utopia to you. Africa, like any other place, has got its problems, much as the West. But for sure, you will be able to find a lot of commonality. Yeah? You'll be able to find a lot of commonality. See, my Muslim sisters here are traffic officers. So, take your trip to Africa. Do your due diligence. If you want to invest on the continent of Africa, then you definitely will need to have done your homework. If you want to make it home, if you found love, still you need to do your homework to make Africa work for you. Go Black to Africa has very strong sentiments about it. But I think by and large, oftentimes when I hear Go Black speak about these things, I think the bigger message there is that it is safety that he's talking about. How best can you be safe on the continent of Africa? The lives that we lost, I would hate to think that the brothers were doing it just because of that major difference. If you look at what happened to this sister who was found unalived, they basically just stole money from her. You are making your way to Africa. You're embracing the continent. You're finding this to be home, only to lose your life. I think that is the tragic bit about it. And I hear a lot of comments that, they're not the first ones to die and all these things. But I think the unique thing about it is the fact that somebody is looking forward to building a new life on the continent, then having to face such trauma on top of what they went through and the loss of life really makes it the more harder, makes it sadder, and makes it to be a case of great interest. Granted that even Africans lose their lives in the Western capitals, but the vast majority of Africans who go to the Western capitals go there for economic gain. That's the vast majority. Yeah? They go there for economic gain. Those who come to Africa because they are looking to pilgrimage, to find a certain kind of peace, to interact with those who look like them, and also just to run away from the facade of a dream in America. Because truth be told, there are elements of that dream that really work best for certain kinds of people. Those are the truths. But I absolutely believe that you can make a life on the continent of Africa, even with these challenges. Learning to navigate tradition and strong culture around certain things is something you'll have to do. And the thing that I find that is the greatest challenge with those who are coming from the West is the little tolerance they have for uncertainty. Uncertainty on many issues in Africa is real because systems do not work so well. So you will find a lot of frustration in ensuring that you are able to get anything done, documentation, paperwork, lots of things like that. Other countries are far advanced, others are still slow. But there is a reality, there is a truth. So it's a case of weighing, what do you want? What will be the thing that will be a deal breaker? That is what you'll have to figure out. Nonetheless, I hope this has made sense to you. I hope the sisters who are trying to make their way can make their way. I hope Africa can make sense to you, but absolutely do your homework. And we wish you guys well, man. If this resonates with you, man, by all means, subscribe, like, and share, and definitely ring that bell. Well, many thanks, guys, and check out the next video. This is definitely Afrocentric, and I am certainly out.